This is the Floridaville. Get to know the people behind the Florida names you know. I'm your host, Rosanna Catalano. On this episode, we get to know Dori Foster-Morales. Not only is she the president of the Florida Bar, she is a board-certified attorney in marital and family law with a successful law firm in Miami. We are live video streaming today's episode remotely. I'm in my home office in Tallahassee, and Dori is speaking to us from her office in Miami. Congratulations on becoming president, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the Florida Bar is the organization that regulates the practice of law in Florida and ensures the highest standards of legal professionalism for the more than 100,000 Florida licensed attorneys. As president of this organization, what are your duties and responsibilities?
Well, it is a huge organization. And first and foremost, I am the voice of the Florida Bar. I speak on behalf of the bar at a multitude of events, whether it's at the Supreme Court when we have arguments about new rules, whether it's lobbying for the Florida Bar. I also preside over the Board of Governors meetings, which is like the board of directors. And so all of the rulemaking, all of the policy making comes through the Board of Governors. And I act as sort of the chair of that board. And I run the meetings and the committees and so forth. And we have all sorts of other aspects of running the bar. We obviously run all of the discipline. And so as part of the disciplinary process, everything goes through the Board of Governors, again, which I preside over.
So for our audience members that are not attorneys, can you share with us how a person rises to become the president of such a large and prestigious organization?
Well, that's probably an answer to a question that many people would have a different answer to. I can tell you how I did it, but I would say generally speaking, people get involved with either their local voluntary bar organizations like the Dade County Bar in Florida, in Miami, or maybe the Orange County Bar in Orlando. Maybe you start as a young lawyer in their Young Lawyers Division, and you work your way up through these local voluntary bars until you're president of that organization, after which you might start getting involved with the Florida Bar. Now, I'm talking about the voluntary bar organizations because that's a really traditional route. That was not my route, as is probably consistent with everything in my life. I never take the traditional route. And my route was, I'd never been involved with a bar, never been involved with active bar activities. I had been a government lawyer for the first 10 years of my practice. And government lawyers traditionally are not involved with the bar. When I went out into private practice and I did get involved, I started with getting involved in the family law section of the Florida Bar, which is one of the many sections and committees of the Florida Bar. And I worked my way up through the family law section and started doing some activities that involved the bigger bar, meaning not just the family law issues, but the bigger bar issues. I ended up chairing the annual convention one year. And from that, I ran for the Board of Governors, never thinking that I would be bar president. Again, I'd never been president of anything before. I hadn't been president of my local bar organization. I'd come up a little bit of a different way. But I felt like where I came from, I had a little different perspective on the practice of law, and the type of leadership I thought I brought to the table was a little different than others. And I thought it was, a flavor that would be good for the bar. And I ultimately decided to run for bar president. And that's what I did.
Well, I'm glad you did. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you practice marital and family law, as I mentioned earlier, and this type of law practice is known for being very stressful, emotional, litigious. What personality traits do you possess that make this type of practice manageable for you?
So I'll share some personal information. Both of my parents were divorced multiple times. I personally have been married 31 years, but my parents were divorced a lot. And I think I was able to distance myself from my clients, provide good advice and guidance, and not get overly personally involved. And I think one of the keys is you can't own your clients' problems. You have to own their solutions. And so it is my belief that I want to leave someone in a little bit better place than I found them. And I have to help them find some solutions to their problems, because clearly they've come to me in an unhappy marriage, in a difficult place. And so it's my job to sort of create a resolution to help move them on to that better place. And I think if you look at your job that way, you can manage the stress. I laugh all the time because we, more than one lawyer in this office, there's 6 lawyers altogether including me. And me and my partner are the oldest of the six. And, well, it'll be super hot. We're running to court. They're all women, all these young women, they're sweating. And they're like, how is it possible that you're not sweating? And I say, well, I just can't. I have to stay calm for everyone. I have to stay calm for my clients, for you all. So it's sort of a mind over matter thing, but I feel like that really brings great comfort to the clients when I'm not agitated and upset. And if I can be a voice of reason, I think it helps them to be a voice of reason.
That's a great perspective. So I know you grew up in South Florida. Can you share with us what your childhood was like?
So I grew up in Miami Beach, before Miami Beach is what it is today. It was pretty idyllic. It was a small town feeling, a small community. We all went to the public schools. Everyone went to public school, and there was a public school feeder pattern, and you didn't get broken up. Everyone from your elementary school went to your middle school. Everyone who went to the middle school went to Beach High. So there was a real sense of community because you knew people for many years. I was a tennis player. So I played competitive tennis, and that was great. It was it wasn't like everyone played in private clubs, even the wealthiest of people, because there was a lot of money, great wealth in Miami Beach, as there is now. Even back then there was, but everyone played at the public courts, had tennis lessons in that environment. And my dad's, office was down the street from the public tennis courts. And that's where we spent our days. We woke up on the weekends and we went and played tennis all day. And after school, I played tennis, and, I wasn't in the malls. I was, really at the tennis courts.
Were you ever on a debate team?
So it's really interesting. I did debate 1 year, but I ended up not doing debate. And it's interesting. My husband, who also went to Beach High, he did debate, but I really never thought I'd be a lawyer. So why would I do debate?
Isn't that funny how life works?
Exactly.
So where did you attend college, and what was your major?
I went to the University of Florida, and I got a degree in economics.
Go Gators. As a double Gator myself, I'm glad to see we attended the same law school.
Yes.
Why did you choose the University of Florida for law school as well?
Well, I think University of Florida is a great university. At the time I went to college, I'm from a large family. There were 4 kids, and my parents basically said, you can go to Florida or Florida State. Financially, that was what was affordable. So I went to the University of Florida and had a great experience. But my dad really wanted me to be a dentist. And when I broke the news to him that I would not be a dentist, and that the idea of my putting my fingers in someone's mouth for a living just repulsed me, being the middle child, they were super upset. They thought for sure I would follow my father's footsteps. I was the obedient middle child. They then informed me that I would be going to law school. Because if I wasn't going to be a dentist, I would be a lawyer. And I laugh all the time because I really didn't want to go to law school. And I applied to Florida, and I got into Florida. And so I went to Florida, and I spent another idyllic 3 years there. But I went there because basically that's what my parents wanted me to do.
That's a great story. I have parents that said, I had parents that said to me, basically, you're going either to med school or law school. Which one? You're going to be a lawyer or a doctor? And I was like, wait, what?
But what's funny is my family, there are 3 other siblings, and no one else is either a doctor or a lawyer. And I said to my mom once, Mom, I don't understand. Like, it was like the whole speech, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I go, but no one else is. And my mom was like, no one listened to us. We're the only one that listened. I was like, okay. But I'm so glad I did.
I'm a middle child, and I listened as well. So with that, let's take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll discuss your amazing career. At Rocket Ship Consultants, our mission is to launch your business, career, or podcast. Our team works with you to start and grow your business with fresh ideas and inspiration. Let us make key introductions on your behalf and leverage our network of contacts. Talk to us before you send your application in for a new position, a university admission, or a scholarship. From resumes and interview preparation to negotiating offers, our experienced career advisors can help you at all levels achieve your career goals. Let us help you take that dream you have for a podcast or video and turn it into a reality. Rocket Ship Consultants offers a variety of services, so check out our website at rocketshipconsultants.com. Take off with Rocket Ship Consultants and launch your business, career, or podcast with us. And we're back with the president of the Florida Bar. So tell me about your first job out of law school.
So my first job out of law school, of course, I told you that I didn't really think that I wanted to go to law school. And believe it or not, when I graduated law school, I definitely didn't think I wanted to be a lawyer. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was engaged to be married, and I got married right after law school. My husband went to Beach High, and he was also a lawyer. And he got a job in Washington, D.C., which was great. I wanted to leave Florida. I wanted to experience life outside of Florida and Gainesville and Miami. But I didn't know what I would do. So I figured I would just start pounding the pavement. But my husband was coaching a T-ball team, and he met a guy who worked at the EPA and who took a liking to me. And he offered me a job at the Environmental Protection Agency a couple of months after I moved to DC. And I worked at the Environmental Protection Agency, first in DC in the enforcement unit, and then in New York City, which is called Region 2. It's New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. That's their area, and worked for them there as well. And it was, a wonderful job. The federal government, it's, a great place to work. It's a great place to get your feet wet as a young lawyer. I learned, better writing skills. And my husband, who, was very supportive of me, had said to me, I know you don't think you want to be a lawyer, but you went to law school, and I think you need to do it for 2 years. And if in 2 years you don't want to be a lawyer, then you can find out something else you want to do, but you at least need to try it. And I'm so glad he did that, because that is really why I'm still a lawyer, because I had someone encouraging me. And I obviously ended up loving being a lawyer. I was so grateful for this career path. And it all started at the EPA.
So what did you do after you left the EPA?
So after I left the EPA, we were living in New York City. My husband really wanted to come back down to Miami. We're both from here. And I didn't really want to, because I, at that point, loved my job at the EPA. And he ran into Janet Reno, who at the time was the state attorney for Miami-Dade County. It was right before she was selected to be attorney general by President Clinton. And they ran into each other at a funeral of a close friend of my husband's, an elderly gentleman who was his godfather. And Janet ultimately offered me a job in environmental crimes at the state attorney's office in Miami-Dade County. And it was a great opportunity. I was a little nervous about leaving New York. I really enjoyed living there, but I did. And I became a trial lawyer. I never did environmental crimes, by the way. I just ended up being a trial lawyer, and I prosecuted for 5 years, and it was an incredible experience. Talk about being a lawyer. That's really being a lawyer. And I loved it, and it really put me on my road to what I'm doing today.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about that particular job. When I worked as an assistant state attorney, I loved being part of a team. I think when you work as a prosecutor, it's one of the few times you really feel like you're part of a team when you're practicing law. So what in particular did you enjoy about your time at the state attorney's office and prosecuting?
I loved the partnership that I had with people, the community. My closest friends all came out of the state attorney's office, are all doing amazing things. I always had a trial partner. I always tried cases with people. I ended up loving evidence, and just the act of putting a case together, putting it before a jury, building something important and seeing it through to the end. Maybe having been a tennis player, I was used to being in a competitive environment and being self-reliant, and I found it really exhilarating. Nerve-wracking, exhilarating, exhausting. Anyone who knows trial work, it's like the highs and lows. I always say, when people say, I've never lost a case, I'm like, then you're not really a trial lawyer, because we've all lost cases. We've all had heartbreaks. And it's, I don't know, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. But I would say that my closest, my dearest friends came from the state attorney's office. And, I'm very, very grateful, not just to Kathy Rundle, who ultimately was my supervisor, but folks like Michael Band, who was the first assistant who I worked under, is still a dear friend of mine, to all the judges who mentored me, who gave me feedback in my trials, who I hear from today, always so supportive of my efforts with the bar. It just, you really get to know everyone within the court system when you're a prosecutor. You just don't get that in the private sector.
Yeah, a true adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So after the state attorney's office, where did you work?
So in 1998, I left the state attorney's office. My daughter had been diagnosed with autism. My husband had been elected to the county commission, but was still, working as a lawyer in Miami-Dade County. That's a part-time job. And I had to figure out, how to make more money. And even though I was not a money-oriented person, I had a child with special needs. And so I started doing a lot of, informational interviewing, trying to figure out where I could land. And I knew, because of the political things my husband was doing, I didn't want to be at a big firm that created conflicts. I didn't want to do criminal defense work. And I just sort of did a lot of soul searching. A lot of people had lunch with me. And it I arrived at this thought that not a lot of people did from the state attorney's office, which was maybe family law. I could stay in court. I can continue to try cases. And Marcia Elser, who I had met over the years, was the real doyen of the family law bar at the time, first female president of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. I called her just to see if we could have lunch and ask her if she thought there was room in this field. I'd never taken family law. It was just sort of a thought. And we went to lunch, and she looked at me and she says, if you want to do family law, I want you to do it with me. And I'm like, but I don't even know if I can do it. And she's like, I know you have what it takes. And she mentored me, and, obviously is still a very dear friend. She's now retired. And that's how I ended up with Marcia. It was a little bit of a journey.
Incredible. So you have your own firm now. What's the hardest lesson that you've learned by owning your own law firm?
So I've been so lucky because, yes, it's my firm, but, I started with Marcia and it evolved. It wasn't like I had to just open up a firm. I mean, Marcia's retired, and so that's the case. But it evolved into what this is, which is a pretty substantial practice. But I would say the hardest lesson I learned was, I think like most business people, you need to really watch what's going on in your backroom operations, because you can't be completely reliant on anyone. And no one's ever stolen money from me, but there definitely have been transitions in my office managerial staff that taught me a lot of lessons about being in tune with those things and asking a lot of questions. So I would say I avoided what you sometimes happen with firms where people steal money and those sorts of things. I've never had that, but I have learned that you have to ask questions. You can't just trust. You need a good system of checks and balances, and you need to enjoy what you do. I mean, I think if you don't enjoy what you do, you need to find something else to do. So I think that's the case for me.
They say picking a business partner is just as hard as picking a spouse, and you have had a friendship with your law partner that spans 3 decades. Why do you think this pairing is so successful?
So Bonnie and I met basically our first day of law school. We are very different, but we're both very detail-oriented lawyers. We litigate a little differently. We're working on a case together now. That's always interesting. I think the truth of any partnership is you got to have thick skin. I mean, when you spend a lot of time with people, whether it's your spouse or your business partner or any of the people in your office, especially during this pandemic, everyone's under a lot of stress, and you just have to give people some room to maybe disagree, to deal with, conflict. I just think conflict's a really natural part of life. And what I think is the worst about conflict is when people don't think it's normal and they try to avoid it. And sometimes you have conflict, and your ability to just sort of let it slide. And both people need to be able to do that. So Bonnie and I have a lot in common. Our kids are very close friends. Last night we had dinner together because my son's going off to college, going back to college this weekend. Her daughter will go 2 weeks later. They're the same age. I think it's about not just so much about who you pick, but how you manage that relationship. And just, not being overly critical, I guess is the way to put it. Recognizing everyone's doing their best and trying their hardest. Hopefully that's the case.
You've also been with your husband for more than 3 decades. And as a divorce attorney that has seen a lot of broken homes, what do you think makes your union with your spouse so successful?
So Jimmy and I met in high school. I was 15. He was 17. We did not date in high school, but we did know each other and have we met and we had a great friendship, but he went off to college pretty quickly after we met, within the year. And so I think we have a great shared history. We're both incredibly supportive of the other. So there's not ever been a lot of when are you coming home to cook dinner or when are you coming back, me to him. We've both had incredibly demanding careers. And I think that the sum of the parts is greater than each individual part. I mean, I just think that we're better together. Again, I think nothing's perfect. So I think the other thing is recognizing that no one's going to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. No one's going to live your life for you. They can only be a good part of your life. And I think, like a business partner, you need to sort of give people a lot of room. I mean, this weekend, it looks like there might be a hurricane. So he's the city manager of Miami Beach. So he's been dealing with a pandemic. He's been dealing with racial unrest. And now he's dealing with a hurricane. Well, he's under a lot of stress. I'm trying to manage being president of the Florida Bar remotely, run a practice, get a child ready for college. I mean, there's just a lot going on. Life is complicated. And once you accept that life is complicated and everyone's doing their best, I think that really helps.
I'm sure life has dealt you some hard blows along the way. How do you stay resilient?
I think when you look back at the knocks along the way, you realize that's how you became resilient. So, I would say the hardest thing that we faced was our daughter's diagnosis of autism, but it was the thing that made me the strongest. It made me leave the state attorney's office. It made me become a family lawyer. That resulted in me getting involved with the bar. I wouldn't be bar president if it weren't for that. So I think when you look at what difficulties bring you, the strength it brings you, you end up being grateful for them. I was laughing the other day and saying how, in this day and age where kids have, you've heard the term helicopter parent. Even if you're not a helicopter parent, our kids have lived these idyllic lives in good economies. My husband and I were never divorced. My son's never gone through that. I kind of said, as much as I hate the pandemic because it's been so disruptive to their lives, they've had to become resilient, more resilient maybe than they would have become otherwise. My son had a great internship and that fell through and other things have fallen through. And he had to figure out sort of what he needed to do to find happiness this summer and what he needed to do to find fulfillment. So I think some of the struggles are what makes you resilient in and of itself. So I would say, the struggles of having parents that were divorced multiple times or having a child with a special need, those are the things that made me resilient. And also seeing, I guess the reality is life worked out really well. So it makes me realize that those struggles along the way are really what created maybe some of the success along the way and seeing the good in them.
What do you hope to accomplish this year as Florida Bar president?
Wow, such a wild year. When I started getting really involved in the leadership aspect of the bar, my main goal, my singular focus was the mental health and the wellness of Florida lawyers. And I had seen friends and colleagues commit suicide and not manage their lives well. And I really felt like lawyers were used to helping people with their problems and were not getting help for their own problems. So my focus has always been that. right before I was sworn in, a few months early, we kicked off a free help and wellness line for Florida lawyers, along with a program of three free sessions of mental health therapy if needed. And so I'd really like to continue pushing that out to encourage people to get help. I have to say that the pandemic has just made life a lot more stressful for many people. There are economic issues that didn't exist, childcare issues that didn't exist, so many pivots in how we have to practice law. So my hope as bar president is I can help people through the pandemic, that I can provide services, the needed services for people to assist them in pivoting where they need to pivot, and that I could basically, keep the trains running on time, to keep the everything afloat. And so while maybe I would have had a special program or a special plan, this year is about our resiliency as Florida lawyers and our resiliency of our profession. So my focus is really on that, not just so much mental health and wellness of lawyers, but the resiliency of our profession overall, because, the pandemic has clearly showed us some ways that we really need to make sure that we can practice law, whether there's a hurricane or a pandemic, because not only do we need to practice law for our professional well-being and our financial well-being, but people in the state of Florida need us to help them solve their problems in the legal context. So it's really important that the third branch of government works, and lawyers really need to be there to help accomplish that.
We like to end our show with a little fun by asking all of our guests the same 7 questions. What would people be surprised to know about you?
So people that know me know that I'm like this hard-charging lawyer, and I work really intensely. My clients certainly know that. But at home, I'm not like that. I'm very organized, but I love to cook for my family. And a lot of people are surprised by that. They think someone like me wouldn't be that kind of nurturing person, but I really enjoy cooking for my family and bringing my family together for family events and holidays. And I'm sort of, my husband and I are the one couple in the extended family that does that for everyone.
That's nice. When you have guests in town, where is your favorite place to take them?
So I could say Miami Beach. Everyone wants to go to Miami Beach. And of course, I grew up on Miami Beach, and my husband is a city manager for Miami Beach. So of course, people want to go to Miami Beach. They want to go to Joe Stonecraft. But my favorite place to bring them is the Florida Keys, because there's nothing as unique as the Florida Keys. And we have a home there. And we have a home in the Middle Keys, which is kind of old Florida. And I think it's an area that, if you've never been, it's one of the most unique places in the country. So I love to take people to the Florida Keys and boating and fishing and eating seafood in a completely unique environment.
I love the Florida Keys as well. So what is the name of a book you recently read that you could not put down, or the name of a show you enjoyed binge watching?
So I haven't read a book in a long time. I wish I had, but I binge watched Killing Eve, and I loved it. I thought it was a great show. My husband did not like it, didn't want to watch it. We don't necessarily have the same taste in television, but I thought it was great. I love the characters, the uniqueness of it, the creativity. So that's what I watched recently.
Among your close family and friends, what are you best known for?
So what everyone says about me, and I think it has something to do with the legal practice and what I told you about the cooking and the hostessing, is that I'm incredibly competent. And they always say, you're incredibly competent. You can do whatever needs to be done. And some friends of mine were talking about like going to Lake Powell and let's rent a houseboat and do one of those big houseboats. I'm like, I know what's going to happen on that houseboat. I'm going to be cooking every night for you people. So I know I'm really competent, and you love that about me, but I'm not sure I'm going to go on a houseboat with you people. So everyone says I'm very competent. I'm not sure exactly what that means, other than if something needs to be done, I kind of know how to get it done.
You're the one that steps up.
I step up.
If you have a nickname, who gave it to you?
I have a nickname. My husband gave it to me.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
if I knew I couldn't fail, the one thing I miss is the practice of trial law in front of a jury. And of course, I'm known for being a family lawyer, and I have a wonderful practice and great clients, and you can't really necessarily close your door at this stage in my career to that. But I would love to be able to go back to doing some trial work in front of a jury. Quite frankly, right now, there are no juries. I'm grateful I can still try cases because my trial lawyer friends who are jury trial lawyer folks, they're stuck with the pandemic. That's the one thing that they really can't do remotely or virtually. But I would love to do another jury trial.
What are the top 3 things you love about living in Florida?
I love the weather. What's not to like about the weather? I even like it when it's really hot.
Okay, you're alone there on that one.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. Maybe because I'm just used to it. I don't know. Jump in the pool. It's hot. It's okay with me. What I love personally about Florida or Miami in particular, I love the people. Just, very warm, welcoming group of people because people come from all over. You have Latin Americans in Miami and you have people from all over the country. And so it's a really diverse place. The restaurants are great when they're open, of course. And it's just a really eclectic place to live. And I like the architecture. It's beautiful here. I think it's really beautiful. You have, obviously you have the Art Deco district, you have the old Spanish homes. I just think the architecture and the foliage is beautiful. And I think it's just a beautiful place to live.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wonderful way to get to know you as Florida Bar President. I wish you a very successful year, and hopefully it'll get better and we'll have less stressors on us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Glad I could connect with you.
Thank you. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast channel on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast listening platforms. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Visit our website to see some extras regarding this episode. Our live stream director for this episode and audio editor for this podcast episode is Joy Tootle with Rocket Ship Consultants. If you're interested in starting a live stream or podcast, contact Joy, and her email is joy@rocketshipconsultants.com. Thank you for tuning in.